turned on the Bluetooth function on his phone. It's connected. You can put it on. He is now connected via Bluetooth with the headphone, and he can start running. So as you can see, the Bluetooth function is basically working. There is no wire dangling. There is no cumbersome task at all. He does not need to bother about if something is coming out of his ear or not. He's basically started his activity on the treadmill. He will now go on the treadmill function of the watch. The reason why he is going on the treadmill function of the watch is primarily on the treadmill function of the watch is because indoors GPS signal cannot be acquired, right? That is why the motion sensor in the watch will basically, using the motion of his arms, detect what is the distance, the speed, the time, the duration, all those aspects at which he is running. Correct? As you can all see, it's a very easy task. It's not cumbersome at all. So that gives you an understanding of the music feature. Number two, we go to the fact that all watches come with an inbuilt activity tracker, right? So there is a pedometer that basically gives you your daily steps. It gives you your calories burnt during the course of a day. And it also gives you the duration of activity done during the course of the day. This can be monitored in terms of day and in terms of week. Are you all with me? Yeah, and of course the calories as well. Yeah, so I think I forgot that part. Okay, now that we're done with this aspect, what Jatin and I will be basically sharing with you is how it acts as a personal trainer on your wrist, which is the unique aspect about the TomTom, right? So Jatin, if you could share, now Jatin will be sharing his experiences in terms of how he trains his trainees and various activities that he can use in order to train his trainees. So, Jatin, over to you.
Yeah, thanks. I think I'm quite audible. So quickly, I think most of us, how many of us run here, quickly? Anybody? Okay, super, great. So I'm sure, when I go back to you, I'm sure when I ask you to run immediately, I would not expect you to run for more than 10, 15, 20 minutes when you would have started. So what we work is something called interval training, walk, run training. So this is what, it has an inbuilt body trainer. So what we do is we give an interval training program to the beginners. What we say is couch to 5K. So we're going to give them an interval training program which could go to as less as, let's say, about a minute, could go as less as about 20 seconds, and then we build it up where we reduce the walking and increase the running. So it has an inbuilt voice enabled, so it keeps on telling us what we are doing, giving me all the prompts, when to run, when to stop, and everything is inbuilt here. So that's how we built up our beginner runners to getting them into doing an easy 5K or people looking at doing a 10K as well.
Great. So in addition to that, what basically interval training is a feature that Jatin uses in order to train his trainees. Now that is a feature that is already there in the TomTom. So you can use the watch for interval training as well. Along with that, what Jatin mentioned was an aspect called the couch to 5K. Now what the couch to 5K basically means is that he can set a goal of 5 kilometers. Now what that goal of 5 kilometers means is that today I'm starting to run and my trainer Jatin, he says, you know what buddy, I want you to go for a 5 kilometer run. Now what you can do is basically do zone-based training in the watch. There are various zones that have been divided medically in order for a runner to understand the intensity of his or her workout. As we all are standing over here, we're in the heart rate between 72 to 95, thus giving us an understanding that we're basically not doing any activity. As we start a small jogging activity, we go in the heart rate between 95 to 130. At that point in time, we're in a fat burn activity. Our body is burning more fat. When we become marathon runners, as Jatin is running the Stanchart Mumbai Marathon this Sunday, we go into something called endurance. At that point in time, our heart rate is somewhere between 130 to 160. And then when we start speed training, we go 160 plus. So what you can do with the watch is also train in your optimal heart rate zone. You can set that particular zone and go for a run. And it will give you a beep and a vibration alert every time you slow down or every time you speed up. So Jatin, can you comment on the zone-based training aspect where you can use it for pace as well?
I think like what Karan is picking up, zone-based really helps us to work on our intermediate and advanced runners where we want to work on their timing. So again, like you said, zone-based, so we're going to give them a target that they would be running at an 80% max or a 70% max based on what kind of training program they're following. and accordingly we work with them to improve their VO2 max is what we work on.
Correct. So basically, Jatin, ladies and gentlemen, as Jatin commented, he's running the SCMM this Sunday. So Jatin, care to comment on what pace are you planning to run?
Anywhere between 5:15 to about 5:30. That's what I'm looking at.
5. So you can set that pace, go for a run, and he can basically finish in the optimal target that he has set for himself. Now, we come to the aspect of another. You can also, of course, do lap-based training with the watch. Now, what lap-based training is, Jatin, can you help us understand that, for a lot of runners who are doing, let's say, a half marathon or a 10K for the first time, how important it is for them to get an indication, let's say, every 500 meters or kilometer of how much they have done?
I think it's a very, very important factor. Looking at multiple points when you're looking at a training program as well as a user when you're doing an actual event. So going back to training, it really helps a runner to build up, like I picked up earlier, to pick up small distances. It helps us to work on smaller distances on speed, looking at 400 meters, 500 meters, looking at about 800 meters. And yes, not to forget that when you are doing your 10Ks and 16Ks, or let's say you're doing your half or fulls, getting a beep of how much distance covered is quite a good motivational factor for a runners. I'm sure when you hear that 19 done or 20 done when you're about to finish, it's a motivation factor. That I'm almost done and I need to kick out and I need to run faster. So I think it works out quite beneficial for beginner intermediate runners.
Great. Now, what I would also like to comment on is our last aspect in the training partner. In the training partner, we have something called race, right? Now, Jatin, can you tell us what was the first timing that you had when you did your first half marathon?
It was somewhere around, I did my first half about 6 years back. I was about 2:12, 2:13. 2 hours to 12, 13 minutes.
Okay, so that's it. That's the first timing that he had. Now, for any runner looking to optimize his performance, Jatin, what are you targeting this time?
Targeting about 152.
152.
Yeah.
So basically, that means he has covered another 20 minutes in his time. What I mean by that is that the watch gives you the ability to race against your previous best. Had Jatin run his first marathon, basically the 21 kilometers that he did in 2 hours and 12, at that point in time, that 2 hours and 12 would have gotten stored in the watch, correct? Now what he can do is use that same data and run and race against that. So this time, the watch will give him an alert every time he is lagging behind because he has set the watch to beat that particular target.